Hey, welcome everybody to the social space. Yay! It's the City Space edition of the social space today. So it's a little bit different.
Right. That's right.
I'm not going to tell bad jokes. We're just gonna roll because we're going educational today.
Okay.
I'm Chris Horgan. That's Jackie Hager. There's Andrew Bell. This is Paul Menzies. We'll talk to him in just a second about what in the world he's doing here. But first, we got to thank our glorious sponsors because we have some that are just so good to us and so loyal and so fantastic. So 4 Stars Auto Ranch, thank you, thank you, thank you. Falls Truck Center in Wichita Falls, thank you, thank you, thank you. News Channel 6, thank you, thank you, thank you. And the final thank you, thank you, thank you goes to our friends at Town Square Media. So
Amen.
Thank you all because we couldn't do this without you. So we appreciate you.
That's right.
We do. That was a sincere. It's crazy. All right, so today we are talking about 4A and 4B sales tax boards. They
That's a good
exist
one,
in the
Chris.
city.
You're right, because it's the most often
Yeah.
asked question I get when I'm out talking to businesses or as we're talking about subjects to come on the social space. They're like, you should talk about that 4A thing. And I go, well, it's a thing. It's a real thing. But I think it's good for all of us to revisit what is the 4A, 4B, what do they do, and all of that information.
And for many, this is the first time they're finding out exactly how it all works.
Well, it's our it's our tax dollars, so we deserve to know what's going on and where it goes.
And it's sales tax. Everybody pays
Yes.
it. You don't have to own property for this one. Everybody pays into this one.
That's a good point. That is true.
Thank you.
Sales tax means we all have skin in the game.
Everybody in town and out of town. The folks coming through help us out with this too.
Yes.
But some of that money goes back to them, which we're going to talk about in certain ways. All right. Paul Menzies, Assistant City Manager, City of Wichita Falls. Tell us about you. You're a homegrown product. And tell us about how you relate to 4A and 4B.
Okay. Thanks for having me. This is a great topic. I know I agree with you. I get asked about this all the time when I'm out and about. Paul Menzies, Assistant City Manager. I've been with the city for 5.5 years now, but I am 25 years into local government service. Grew up here, went to Fowler, graduated from Notre Dame, and I was one of those, and this is a topic for another day, I was leaving and never coming home after high school. But I can tell you, after working and living in the San Antonio area, particularly the Houston area, having the opportunity to come back, work for my hometown, it's a thrill and it's an honor to do that in this capacity.
We call that the vortex.
Yes.
Yes.
So
You think you're never coming back, and then you come back, and we go,
I tell
yes.
you, Houston traffic and Hurricane Harvey will send you back quickly. So yes, I'm from here. So. But my responsibilities with the city, basically whatever Darren says I need to do. But I'm the economic development liaison between the boards and the city council. And I also serve at least kind of quasi as the executive director of the 4B. But make sure that all those 4A projects are going smoothly, get them up in front of the council between the EDC board and the council. So that's pretty much it.
Okay.
That's great. So Paul, how did the 4A board and the 4B board come into existence?
Another good question. I get asked about this a lot. So a little bit of a time machine. I'll take you back to like the spring of 1989. The Texas legislature, after a constitutional amendment in 87, the legislature had to come in and pass some laws. And so they passed laws that allow cities to create economic development corporations. And this was at the state level. And so in 89, I believe, they created the ability to have a type A or a 4A board, which is your more classical, primary jobs and industrial development, manufacturing type. And then in 1991, they created what we call the 4B board for more of your quality of life, community improvement, tourism related projects. And in either case, cities could dedicate between 1/8 of a cent of your sales tax, we'll talk about that in a second, and 1/4 of a cent of your sales tax. Now, even though the legislature approved that and allowed cities to do that, it required a local election of the Wichita Falls citizens to create those boards. And so in 1997, there was a local election, and the citizens approved both the 4A and the 4B corporations, and to dedicate 1/4 cent of our sales tax to each board. And so kind of put that in a little bit of perspective. look at your, when you go to Walmart or you're paying your bill at the restaurant, look at your receipt and look at that sales tax. It's going to say 8.25% at the bottom, and folks think most of that goes to the city, and it doesn't. Of that 8.25%, 6.25 goes directly to the state, off the top, goes to the state of Texas, which leaves 2% for the city. 1.5 cents of that 2 cents goes into the city's general fund to help pay for all of our basic service, police, fire, streets, those types of things, which leaves a 0.5 cent, a 1/4 cent to each board. And that 1/4 cent generates about $5.2 million a year right now. So between the two, the 0.5 cent will generate about $10.5 million.
That's a lot of money.
Combined for these economic development projects. Yes, it is quite substantial. Yeah.
So that was a lot of information, but for those that are just tuning in, or I'd like to just reiterate it again, could you tell us again in detail the difference between the 4A and the 4B board?
Okay, so 4A, and it's interesting, so 4A and 4B, the nomenclature actually came to be because when the legislature created the laws, it was actually paragraph 4A in the law and paragraph 4B.
Wow.
So paragraph 4A created, the more, the traditional economic development, the primary jobs, the industrial and manufacturing facilities, and then 4B, paragraph 4B in the law, created more of your tourism-related things or your quality of life projects.
So I know that each one of those boards has a board.
Correct.
How do citizens even inquire about knowing more or possibly getting on one of those boards?
So those boards, like other city boards, are appointed by our mayor and city council, and they have openings periodically. And so just like Parks Board or Library Board, you would need to have an interest and have, some sort of understanding of economic development. And so we have applications on the city's website for those, and like I said, periodically there's openings. And again, it's up to the city council to make those appointments.
And what's really nice is that it's not, you mentioned Parks Board, there's a lot of other boards.
There's a lot of
4A,
other
4B
boards.
super important, and they're, very influential when it comes to how money's spent. But if you're interested in serving on any boards, WichitaFallsTX.gov, place to go. There, you just guide yourself through the website. You can find out what openings there are. There's a lot of different boards, stuff you wouldn't even think about that are out there, and there are openings on those boards, and they do. City Council does end up approving pretty much everybody, don't they? It's almost every single position gets approved.
Yeah, on the boards, yes, they approve all the board positions.
So there's lots of them out there.
Well, that was really clear.
Yeah.
That was a great
was awesome.
history
Feel better? Everybody
course.
feel better?
Yeah.
I feel like we've laid a foundation to what
We
they
do.
Absolutely.
I like it. Okay, because coming up next, we are going to talk more about the 4A board and especially its relationship with the Chamber of Commerce and how those two work hand in hand.
Okay.
Okay? They're like big brother, little brother, siblings, and they have a rivalry. They don't. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
New arrivals coming in every week at 4 Stars Auto Ranch. You get more for your trade and award-winning satisfaction from 4 Stars Auto Ranch.
Experience, commitment here at 4 Stars Auto.
Welcome back, everybody, to the social space / city space today because we're doing an educational show.
Oh, say that again?
Education. We are making a big circle of round education about 4A, 4B, sales tax boards, economic development commission, how they all relate, how the chamber relates. I'm Chris, that's Jackie, there's Andrew. This is Ron Kitchen. It's our CEO, president, super duper guy of the Wichita Falls Chamber of Commerce. Tell us about your relationship and how you're involved with the 4A board.
We're the sales team.
Okay.
So it's our job every day to meet with existing companies, to say, what are your needs, wants, and desires? How do we help you grow more and better jobs? It's our job to work with new employers to go out and say, hey, tell us why, let us tell you why you should be looking at Wichita Falls. We should be part of your decision making. Corporate site selectors, about 300 of those that are important in the nation. It's our job to have incredible relationships. And then it's our job to go to small businesses and say, what do we help you do to grow, take advantage of the opportunities? And then there's always working with the talent piece, because human capital is critical. And so whether that's trailing spouses on the base or working with new college graduates and making sure they find jobs in our city.
I love it.
That's interesting.
So Ron, how do y'all work together and once a new company comes on or something like that?
Once we had a new opportunity, people always focus on incentives. They think that. So one of the things is, and they think it's a new thing. So the first economic incentive started in 190 BC, 200 years before Christ. The port of Delos was giving incentives to get people to move to their port to do business there. So there's nothing new under the sun. Texas is unique. That the reason Texas has 4A and 4B is because it's not competitive otherwise. Texas was getting killed in economic development. And so it's just like the governor's closing fund was created because we just weren't competitive against other places. So our job is to go meet with companies, find a deal, and then figure out what is the package we have to put together, the site, the job training, the other incentives, electric rates, gas rates, everything that it takes, answer those questions to get them to pick us over the literally thousands of other communities that we compete against.
Well, I want to know, how do you even find those companies that are looking to find a city, and what is it like to compete with cities like Abilene, Amarillo? How do you compete with them?
Yeah, the ones that are hard right now are Midland. Is very difficult. Midland is famous for sending companies $5 million checks in the mail and saying, if you meet these standards, cash the check. Set up business here, cash the check. All you have to do is come here, create jobs. We're not quite that gregarious with money. We don't have the money they have to do that. So our job is to go target companies that have the best mix for us and say, what are your needs, wants, and desires, and how do we answer that? Because we're not the right place for everyone, but there are companies that we are perfect for. But we can't plan on them finding us. We have to go find them. We have to talk to them. It means lots of shoe leather, lots of travel. You know, next month I'm gone for 3 weeks. All of those are sales days somewhere, because that's when the national trade shows are, the international shows. That's when U.S. international conferences. So every day it's about meeting with companies and asking those needs, wants, and desires.
That's a huge responsibility to take the taxpayers' dollars, that 1/4% that you take. What are your standards as a chamber to make sure that you spend that money responsibly?
Well, and for the chamber, we get a small percentage of what those dollars are, because a lot of the dollars go to developing the new industrial park. They go directly to the companies for jobs, for incentives. So nobody gets anything free. There is no free money. If you don't create jobs, you don't get money. Let's be very, very clear about that. And for us, compliance is a big deal. You know, there are communities that don't worry about compliance. It's a wink and a nod and a good old boy. Not us. We check every incentive deal every 6 months, and companies have to give us their employment data. And if they're not in compliance, then the board of directors of the Economic Development Corporation, 4A, are going to get a report from us that says the company is not in compliance. Here's what we're doing to remediate that, and we'll be back to you in 6 months with the report. But, you know, in most of our incentives, if you don't do what you say you're going to do, you don't get any money. So there is this myth that money just gets thrown around and wasted. Yeah, it's just not true.
That's an extremely important relationship between you and the city through the 4A board. So you have to be very transparent with that.
100%.
Why should someone, or have you ever come across someone that chose Wichita Falls that is just a great success story?
Sure. I mean, we always hear about, hey, we tell people we have to keep things confidential. And a great example is Panda Bio. Panda Bio was going out west of us.
Oh, really?
And a board member of the Chamber of Commerce heard about it through the grapevine. It had leaked out. The next thing you know, the Chamber team is there calling on the company at their offices in Dallas. And they're now located in a 500,000 square foot building here, and hemp is being planted today because we got aggressive and because that other community let the information leak out. So secrecy is incredibly important.
Yeah.
And most of the time, if it's a publicly traded company and we leak that information, I can go to jail.
Wow.
So leaking publicly traded companies' financial information is a federal crime. And so a lot of times we're keeping things quiet because I don't look good in pinstripes.
That's a good thing.
He's a solid suit.
Well, we're glad you chose Wichita Falls, and thanks
too.
for clarifying everything we need to know about the 4A board.
Yeah, I love it. And I've sat in on those executive sessions. I do as a public information officer for the city, and they guard that money. I can tell you right now, without giving up any secrets, they are very serious about reaching those incentives and making sure that companies are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Well, you made a good
And
point.
it's incentive for jobs.
Yeah, it is.
It's not free money.
Yeah.
You have to create jobs to employ our people.
Yes.
And if you do that, you get an incentive.
Yeah.
I love your comment that you said earlier that this 4A and 4B money, whether it's local sales tax money, even people that just travel through, it all funds that.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes thinking about that perspective is good.
To me, it's like the best way to fund it because we all contribute. No matter you're a sixth grader and you buy a candy bar, you just contribute to the 4A, 4B. You did. And I just picked a sixth grader. You could be 3 and have dad's money and pay for your candy. You contributed. Ron, thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you
So
all.
we've done how it all happened.
Yep.
We've talked about 4A. And coming up next, 4B with one of the social spaces most frequent and
That's
favorite
right.
guests ever. So stay right there. We'll be right back.
Medicare can be confusing. That's why it's important to have a locally born and raised expert to help you understand all your options. I'm Colby Bustacco, and I'm ready to serve you. Medicare changes every year, and that's why it's important to review the changes annually. I understand that everyone's needs are different. That's why I work hard to tailor a plan specifically for you, your family, and your lifestyle. That's the Bustacco way, more personal, more thoughtful, and more trusted.
It's been said that you can save enough energy to power a TV for an entire day by recycling just one aluminum can. We're just doing our part. We are Bell Processing.
4 incredible radio stations. That's who we are. We are Town Square Media, and we bring the best of radio to the North Texas area. Wake up early with News Talk 1290. That's us. How about Kelly Raspberry on 92.9 NIN? Yep, that's us. Bringing you the best of country with 102.3 The Bull. That's us. And rocking it all day long with 106.3 The Buzz. That's us. We are Town Square Media, and we're proud to be a sponsor of the Social Space.
Welcome back to the social space. Typically, we'd say, welcome back to now the city space, but this whole show's been the city space.
Yep.
And a good one.
I'm just red with excitement because the entire show has been about the city of Wichita Falls.
That's right.
I love it. All right, I'm Chris, that's Jackie, there's Andrew. And what is your name? Sorry, I'm just kidding. This is Glenn Barham. Everybody in this city knows who he is, and for good reason. You're involved in so many things throughout the city, but the 4B board is something that you've been involved with for a while. Tell us about your role there.
Well, I'm actually the vice chair of the 4B board. The chair, Tony Fideli, for some unknown reason, couldn't be here today, so here I am. And I'm happy to be here. I've sat in this spot several
Yes, you
times
have.
over the years, and I think actually I was one of your guests on your very first show.
You were.
That's right.
I think the
Wow.
very first show we had you, that was back when, the cray-cray of COVID, and we had you zoomed in. We don't like to talk about that. We like to talk about fun things. And 4B is a fun lane.
So as I said, I'm the vice chair of the 4B board, and so when Tony can't run the proceedings, I'm there to do that.
Yeah. And you do a good job.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's why I'm here today.
There we go.
So Glenn, the 4B board gets to work on a lot of fun projects. How does that make y'all feel when things are complete and the public loves it? You know, can you talk?
You know, you have to define fun projects.
Oh, okay.
To me, personally, any economic development project, be it 4A or 4B, is a fun project.
Yeah.
If we do something that economically benefits this community, that's a fun thing to do.
Absolutely.
And so 4A does that with the bigger projects, the primary jobs, and we step in and do it for quality of life type projects. And probably the first project that people will remember that 4B was integral to was some of the parks projects that have occurred in town, like the ponds on Southwest Parkway and off Missile Road, the firing range for the police department. When that facility had to be built, that was one of the items that was actually on the election that Paul Menzies mentioned that was held in '97. And so it's fun to see those things come to fruition when they finally hit the streets.
Sure.
So speaking of quality of life, so as you travel and you go out to other cities, do you ever see something that you think, gosh, that would be a great thing to bring back to the 4B board to discuss?
Yeah, you know, during the Christmas season, I was at Granbury watching a show at the theater on the square there in Granbury. Unfortunately, Wichita Falls doesn't have a square like a lot of the smaller communities do, but you know, we've got theaters, Backdoor and Wichita Theater.
Yes.
We've got parks projects that are great. The skate park project was another 4B project. You know, we do things that other cities are doing. We just don't get the publicity that they do for whatever reason. Those smaller communities that have courthouse squares, they tend to attract a lot of people, especially when there's something that's very attractive.
Sure, festivals.
But we're doing the same thing everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
But we like to focus our activities on downtown development projects and some infrastructure projects. Downtown development in particular, we help fund the conference center for the new hotel that's going in that should be opening midsummer. And
That's
looking
awesome.
forward to that. That's going to be a fun project.
Yeah.
You're talking about fun projects. The petroleum building there at 8th and Scott that Will Kelty is developing.
Yes.
We funded the fire suppression system for that, and that's a $14 million project, and 4B paid for about $1.4 million of that to help put the fire suppression system in. So that's what we do, and there again, it's that $0.25 sales tax that really generates a lot of activities from our particular board.
Can you share with anything that you guys are working on now?
No.
No.
It's competitive.
Yeah. There again, a lot of downtown businesses, they want help, but they really sometimes don't want folks knowing that they're asking for help.
Sure.
Okay.
You know, I get it both ways. The public's right to know how their money's being spent is very important. But there's a proper time for that to come out, and the proper time is once that project is announced, not before that project is announced.
Right.
And you guys give directions to the city council, is that correct, on what your recommendations are with that money?
That's exactly right. We make recommendations how those funds are spent to the council, and they in turn can either approve or disapprove a project, and they in turn come to us on occasion wanting a project. At our last meeting just a couple of weeks ago, we approved spending some funds to purchase some land that's integral to Lucy Park and the river.
Got it.
That will soon come under ownership of the city of Wichita Falls rather than a private person. So, yeah, we do all that.
Wow, that's a lot of information.
It's really cool. A little tidbit about that project is the owner, and this was on a public agenda, so I can say it, is a guy named Rooster Cogburn.
Oh, really?
Not kidding. Everybody,
Sounds
good for
cool.
him. I would just everybody every time that was mentioned in any meeting or even on the agenda at city council, it was kind of like what?
And no, it's not John Wayne.
It's not from the movies. I thought maybe it came down the Wichita River at one
Where that land sits that we're talking about, for those of you that grew up here, and I've lived here all my life, and I'm 71 now, soon to be 72, unfortunately. But at any rate, there used to be a water slide, a huge water slide.
I remember that.
Right there in that
Yes.
area, where this land that we bought. And,
Yeah.
a lot of fun times at that place. Church groups, youth groups going up there on Sunday evenings, having a good time.
You talk about quality of life with that land. That's also Streams and Valleys uses that. Hot and Hell uses that for part of their mountain bike trail, and also Thor uses a part of that section as well. So it really isn't. I mean, it's not. They didn't just buy a piece of land. They bought something that is actually very much a quality of life
That's great.
kind of deal. Fits
Very
just
much
right
so.
in your wheelhouse.
Exactly.
I love that.
Well, Chris, that's a lot of great 4A, 4B information
Do you feel
today.
like you learned something, Jackie?
I always learn something every time we talk about what the city is doing. But I think this really scratches the itch of a lot of people who said, I don't know what the 4A is, I don't know what the 4B board is, what do they do, how is it funded?
Sure.
So we hope we've gained a lot of information out there. And we always ask those listeners that are listening to the show, if you want to know something or you want to be educated on something, just let us know and we'll find out the answer and get the right guests on the show.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Andrew, did you feel like you learned something today?
I did.
Yeah.
I think it's a great thing for Wichita Falls.
I'm so excited.
Thank you, Chris.
It was all worth it.
And Glenn, you got to come back
I
again.
learned something too, listening to Ron and
Yes.
Paul before me. So, life's all about learning.
Yes, it is.
And if you just open your ears and listen, you can learn a whole lot.
A great man once said, if you're not learning, you're dying.
Well,
It
there you
wasn't
go.
me.
What-
I should learn who said it.
You should.
So-and-so once said, but we're learning, so
We're learning. We're
So,
learning.
all right, thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
thank
Awesome.
you. We will see you next Sunday right back
Yay.
here. Bye, yay.